presented by AfterBuzz TV, where integral members of the WWE, Cathy, Kelley, Sonya, Deville, and Christy St. Cloud started their careers. This is Women's Pro Wrestling Weekly, the first online pro wrestling show dedicated to all things women's pro wrestling, showcasing news and interviews with top superstars in the industry. And now, AfterBuzz's own gorgeous hosts of wrestling.
Welcome, guys. My name is TK Trinidad, and you are watching Women's Pro Wrestling Weekly, where we talk all things women's pro wrestling. Now, we are retooling the show a little bit, so there are going to be some changes in the coming weeks, but that's not going to stop us from having some really big interviews, like my special guest today. I'm really excited. So, fellow Canadian, also from Toronto, the one and only Impact Wrestling Hall of Famer, Gail Kim. So, check it out, guys. This lady needs no introduction. However, she is one of the world's greatest female wrestlers and Impact Hall of Famer, Gail Kim. Hi.
Hello. Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh my gosh. Let me just break it down to you. I really appreciate you, Gail. I think you were in Los Angeles maybe about 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
And we were trying to make it work. We were trying to have you come into the studio, but you were working with it, and some people would just have given up. And I really appreciate we're not Entertainment Tonight or any of these big publications, but I really appreciate you for trying to make it work. And then when it didn't work, we reschedule it. And I just want to, from the bottom of my heart, just say thank you so much for coming on.
Absolutely, no problem. Thank God for Skype, right?
I know, right? The beauty of technology. So, happy belated birthday, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I had actually don't make a big deal out of my birthdays normally unless it's a milestone birthday.
Right.
But this year I kind of just celebrated for a couple days.
I celebrate for 6 weeks.
So nice. You like it then.
Well, I mean, it's awesome. A celebration of life. And the good thing about it is you look absolutely amazing. So I'm sure everybody, I can say your age, right?
Yeah.
41 years old. Like
I'm 41 years old, and I hate aging. I will say I have a little bit of dysmorphia from the business, and I think a lot of the girls do, to be honest. And a lot of the guys actually do too, to be honest. So it's hard, but it's a part of life. You gotta accept it. I will say stepping away from the camera helps a little bit, so you don't become so crazy about it. But I will say my husband's in the spotlight too, so I guess I still have a little bit of it, but it's definitely letting go.
Have you not looked at the mirror lately? You look amazing.
You know what? It's dysmorphia. That's what it truly is. The thing that you look in the mirror and you don't see everything that everyone else sees.
Right.
Or I think women that have been in our business for a while anyways, just you have such a critical eye of yourself. Right. Everyone, you're the worst critic for yourself. Or what's that? How does it go? Your own worst critic.
Well, yeah. You look amazing. And thanks. I know, you might not see that in the mirror, but can you give us like what's your secrets to look
Well, I will say, I really do take care of myself, and I will, in my 20s and in my early 30s, I would say by my 30s though, I was into the routine. And anyone that knows me in the business, you can ask any of the guys. I'm not, even this weekend in Romania, everybody went out, and because the convention was always over by 3 and we were out of there by latest 4, we got to go out and meet the girls and have drinks and have fun. But I was in my hotel room by 10:30 and everyone else was, going to party. I think it's just, I guess I'm over it. I can have a couple of drinks. I know I don't really have that FOMO thing. A lot of people have the FOMO.
For those who
I don't have the FOMO.
Missing out.
I have a fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And I just know that all that alcohol actually just affects my body, and I'd rather just feel good.
And look good.
In terms of, feel good, look good, be able to get to the gym and not feel so weighed down the next day and have no energy. I try to eat very clean, even though I'm married to a chef and I love to eat food. If anything, I would say I'm around more alcohol because of a lot of events and food and wine events. But I would say I'm pretty good. I'm very disciplined. I always have been.
And now, has your training changed a little since you've retired from wrestling, as far as the gym?
Definitely. I mean, actually started changing while I was still wrestling because my back was starting to deteriorate.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, what happened was I just couldn't walk after a couple of matches here and there. And I never had an MRI. I never really knew what was going on in my body for
Mm-hmm.
so long. And then it was coming to the point where I was always wrestling and not being able to walk after. And I said, okay, it's time. I need to know what's going on, even though it's kind of a scary thought, but you have to know so you can help it.
Right.
So then I basically got an MRI done, and I guess I'm grateful that it wasn't worse. But my L4 and my L5, pretty much the discs, the cushioning before was just basically all gone.
Oh, wow.
There's just like a thin layer left. So it's getting to the point where it could be bone on bone soon. And so the L5, what was left was bulging. And so that bulge was hitting my nerve in my leg.
Oh,
And that's what was causing my, I couldn't walk, basically. Right. I don't know. I'm having a problem talking today. So after that, they said, well, we could remove the bulge, and we did a very minor back surgery where they removed the bulge. So they didn't do anything to fill the discs. And basically, I just made the decision that I didn't want to keep on going where I had to have that major surgery, because that minor surgery, the way that they called it minor, he told me that I could get back in the ring in 7 weeks. And that 7 weeks turned into 7 months.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, and I had a lot of post-surgery nerve damage, and so my foot just felt these nerves for so long, and I just said, if this is minor, I don't even want to know what major is. And so it makes you self-reflect and think, okay, so it's this bad now, so you're basically heading for the major surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought to myself, what goals do I have left to accomplish for myself, personally? And I felt very satisfied with what I accomplished, looked at my age, looked at just a lot of things.
Right.
And so I came to the conclusion that it was time to retire. I was already thinking about it, but that really made me solidify the final decision.
Yeah. It's funny how our bodies kind of let us know, because say, for instance, if that happened when you were like in your 20s, you might have actually like recovered a little bit faster, and you are in great shape, but just takes a little bit longer to recover from just a minor surgery, or even just stretching. Like I remember I used to, like when I ran track, I would just go and run track. Now it's like, no, you're gonna stretch, get everything together, and then else I'm gonna have I'm not gonna feel so good the next day. So it's definitely reflection thing. But
it's so funny and I try to tell the younger generation, I never did massages, I never got adjusted, I just went out there, I didn't warm up, and it caught up with me. Mind you, I did get good 17 years in there. Yeah. So I always trained all the time and made my muscles strong, which helped my joints, I would think, prevented injury. So I was lucky, but I think that to the young wrestlers out there, take care of your bodies now. And I tell all the girls I agent now, I'm like, honestly, I think that drop kick off the top rope and I landed on my back every single time. It was one of my signature moves. And I remember people telling me, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that? And I was always so fearless. I just thought, oh yeah, whatever. And I brush it off, which I think everyone will do to me too. They'll brush it off. But I truly, truly believe that was a contributor to my back going. Yeah.
I think when we're we all think we're invincible when we're younger, and then all the little things that our parents told us, or like older athletes told us, you're like, yeah, it's not going to happen to me, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, I see what you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
But, we all have to learn our lessons. But you did get a really long career out of it, which is better than a lot of folks. Sometimes it ends too soon, or sometimes it doesn't even get started. So, you did have a lengthy career where you impacted folks. Speaking of people that you impacted, did you get to see the Hall of Fame where Ivory's speech?
I did not get to see it, but because I was out with the girls that night.
She gave you a little shout out.
I heard she gave a shout out to all the girls that was part of our generation. And I was just truly flattered. I saw, a lot of fans told me on Twitter. And then I saw Dean Malenko, one of the agents for WWE, who I used to work with. And he told me as well. He said Molly or Nora and Ivory mentioned. I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure it was Ivory, though.
Yeah.
And so it was unexpected because Ivory and I had worked together for such a short period of time. Mind you, I had just great memories and experiences with her. She was always so nice because you never know how girls are going to be when you start off. But she was always so nice and just very helpful. And I really looked up to girls like her and Molly because, I mean, they were veterans back then, very polished. And Ivory was always just a great speaker. I mean, that's one of the things that she was already a good wrestler. I mean, everyone knew that. But her talking ability was on another level, I think, for a female. And I just love that about her, is just all this, she exuded all this confidence.
Yeah, she did a really great story. I mean, I don't want to ruin it for you, but she did a really good storytelling, and she kind of and this was her acceptance speech. So like you're with her, and she's telling the story, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like you feel like you're on the journey versus just saying thank you to everybody. So definitely when you have some time, definitely check it out for sure.
I will.
Now, now currently you're actually a producer for Impact, correct?
Yeah.
So tell us, like, what's your day-to-day as far as being a producer for Impact?
So producer, I'm basically, I mean, in terms of, I think a lot of people think I'm part of the creative, and I'm not part of the creative. That's a completely separate thing. We have a creative team, and I'm just the female producer or agent for the girls. And so when we're at TVs, I'm basically the one that helps them put together their matches, tell them the business of the match, tweak whatever I think. For myself, I'm more about the psychology of the match. That's where I'm very nitpicky, and that's something that I always tried to focus on when I was wrestling. I always wanted to make the matches in some way different, unique, interesting. I never wanted to have that basic match. I just wanted us to stand out in some way or another, whether that was storytelling or interesting wrestling. So I try to incorporate that, and the girls know my personality too. I'm very direct, and I just try to tell them, I don't sugarcoat anything, and I'll tell them, okay, that was good, that was not so great, and this is what we're going to do to make it better. So I have fun. It's because I went from working with these girls, and then I always kind of felt like almost like a motherly older sister type. And I was already kind of transitioning in that role anyways for years. So it felt like a very natural,
natural thing
to happen, for this transition to happen.
So now would the girls kind of get their storyline and what's kind of supposed to be happening, and then they discuss what they want to do? Or
I actually will probably find out most of the stuff at the same time as the girls.
Okay.
Sometimes I might hear a little bit, maybe if I dig around a little bit and I ask, but I don't, because things can change pretty much at the drop of a dime. So unless it's like a huge pay-per-view and I really want to be prepped, then maybe. But I'm normally just go by the seat of my pants kind of girl.
And now, as you were talking about, obviously the younger wrestlers coming up, they definitely have to warm up and stretch and all that stuff as far as their body. But you mentioned the wrestling psychology. What would be like your suggestion or your advice to young wrestlers coming up that, they don't have that much experience just yet?
Yeah. I mean, I try to tell all wrestlers this, because pro wrestling has changed so much. I mean, the wrestling that I grew up with was so different from the wrestling that I participated in. The wrestling that I grew up with, I mean, it was all huge characters. It was literally like DDT, Jake the Snake's finisher as DDT was the most devastating thing ever. And now it's a transition move, people are doing all these high flying crazy things, and that's cool. I get it, because I remember what I felt like when I started training. That's all I wanted to do, was all the cool moves. And so I try to tell even guys, I'll tell the guys and the girls, because now I'll go to an indie show and I'll see every spot in the book, every fancy move in the book jammed into this match. And it drives me crazy, because honestly, the fans want to see it, but I think that if you almost trick them into the psychology of the match and the storytelling of the match, and you give them half those moves or even a quarter of those moves, but you make them mean something, they'll remember those moves so much more. So if you watch a move with I'm not going to say names, but there's certain people who I'm like, ding, 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 ding. And these are like guys I'm thinking of. And a lot of these like X division type cruiserweights. And I get it. That's what they're supposed to do.
Right.
But they can still tell a story, give that type of wrestling, and have the fans remember it a lot more. And so I just try to tell them, tell the little story in between, and then do that special move right at the end, like punctuation mark.
Yeah.
And so, because fans will go, whoa, 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 whoa.
It's too much.
And yeah, it's too much. And then they're going to forget even the first three moves. And honestly, you just killed your body for it.
I kind of think about it. I mean, your husband's a chef. I think about it as like food. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
you created this really great, you know, chocolate cake. You can't have it every hour on the hour because you can't appreciate it. But you have it, you know, once a month, and you know, you added, you know, it's a higher grade of chocolate and all this stuff. Now you can really appreciate it and remember what it tastes like versus, you know, every day. Obviously, I haven't had chocolate cake in a while, but
and,
you know.
And I'll tell you, there's a good example of a match. I don't know if you've even watched it, but there was a match with Taryn and I. It was the last knockout standing match. And basically what happened that night was that Bubba and Sting were the main event that night, and they had a no DQ type match, you know, very similar rules as what our match was. And they were the main event that night. So basically when we walked into that match that day, they were saying, well, you can't use tables, you can't do this. And we had all these things planned, which was probably too much, you know, and they just kept on taking everything away. Well, you can't do this for the finish. You can't do that. You can't do that. And I begged for just the use of one weapon, and that was the chair. And literally, if you go back and watch that match, we were forced to storytell. And so we told a story. We used one weapon. We used it in a very creative way and used it very sparingly. Not the obvious, like, hit her with the chair, hit her with the chair. And I truly believe that that was what made that match so special. So I'm kind of glad they took away all these things, because it forces you to become very creative.
Right. And now when you, I mean, I covered the news for wrestling. There was one time where within the last maybe 6 weeks, somebody used, I believe it might have been a chair, just not correctly, and it actually injured somebody. Now, when you are using, you know, those objects, is it, I don't know if you can give away the secret, but is there a way you kind of use it and the person knows it's coming so both people are safe?
Well, I mean, the person should know it's coming regardless. And there is ways to use it more safe than another way.
Right.
So there's certain sides of the chair that you don't want to hit them with. And I mean, I've done it. I'm guilty of it myself. When I hit Kong with the chair, I didn't know, and I hit her on one side with the wrong, on the head.
Yeah, I saw that.
The wrong side. And so you kind of learn through your experiences, but when you're putting a match together, there really wasn't anybody to tell me, okay, this is the right side and that's the wrong side, because girls don't normally use chairs. So same thing with Jackie Moore when I had a street fight with her the first time, and Jim Cornette's like, have you ever done the piñata spot? I'm sure these people have heard this story before. And I said no, and he just told me, put the garbage can over her, and take the kendo stick and basically swing away. But I wasn't told to look at what direction her feet are pointing, so I know where I'm hitting, so she can protect herself inside. So I knocked her 2 front teeth out. Oh. But she was honest. She's the toughest woman I've ever been in the ring with. She just asked for some sugarless gum, chewed on it, and stuck it up there.
I love it.
Now you just continued.
Now you did mention Awesome Kong. She was in Glow. She was in Glow the first season, and you did say you called her, and actually I think you said you also went to the set. Correct?
Yes.
Now,
we went last day.
Glow season 2 is coming up. I've heard rumors it's in June, but don't quote me on that. Now, were you able to talk to Awesome Kong about that, or did you get to go on the set?
Not about season 2. I did not. I wasn't. I spent parts of my year in LA, and I just happened to be in LA at the time and living in LA part time last year. Okay. This year, I'm not sure what we're doing, but you know, my husband works a lot out there, and we have a lot of friends out there. So this year I saw Chavo a lot, and Chavo works on the show as well. And so he just told me, the only thing he told me was that this season is really good. So I love season 1. So
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to season 2.
I'm definitely as well. Now, as far as the up and coming women for Impact, is there anybody in particular that you want us to look out for, or is there anybody that you're excited about?
I'm excited about. I'm just excited that we basically have a really solid group now, because we went through a little bit of a transition period where we're rebuilding,
Mm-hmm.
and we kind of had some really experienced girls, and then we had some girls that we tried out, or some girls who weren't completely polished yet. And mind you, there's still some girls that aren't completely polished right now,
Mm-hmm.
but they all click. They're all like, the last TVs they've been delivering,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been such a positive just upswing lately. And I think we're all getting settled into, even the girls had to transition of me becoming their agent, because they had Simon Diamond as their agent for like years. I mean, he was my agent.
Mm-hmm.
And so going through the transition also for myself, to going from wrestler to agent. I mean, a lot of people don't think about that, but for me, it was the first 2 tapings were really hard for me, because I had to let go of that control. You can only do so much as an agent, because once they go through that curtain and they go to perform, it's out of your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me as a wrestler, it was really hard to watch, because sometimes I'd be like, oh no, I just want to control this match. I just want to control it. And you got to let that go. And so I think the last TVs is when it just kind of all just started molding together.
Now,
And it's a good group.
Now, did you take, because you did retire, as far as you made that decision for your body.
Yeah.
Now, did
Yeah.
you take some time in between, retirement, or did you do something mentally to kind of make that transition between, like, I'm no longer that athlete? Because I know sometimes when athletes either get it taken away from them, or, you want to be you like that thrill of being an athlete, and you no longer can do it, and you can no longer watch that sport for a time.
Right.
Did you go through that?
I was actually really nervous about what my emotional state was going to
Mm-hmm.
go through, because you just never know. I've seen a lot of wrestlers go through a really hard time. And I swear to you, when I made the announcement to retire, I must have heard a million times from people, oh, but you're not really retiring.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people I worked with who saw that I couldn't walk after matches, but you're not really retiring. I'm like, no, I'm really retiring. And so I was nervous about how I was going to feel. Um, but I think because I am still a part of the business, that was my saving grace.
Mm-hmm.
That I still have it in my life.
Right.
And I still have a way to contribute. And also, because of my back, I always said I would step away when I felt like I wasn't giving 110%, because I'm a perfectionist in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, even though I might not have been showing it necessarily, I was feeling it. And so I didn't like feeling less than my best. And so mentally, in that regard, and also watching people do crazy things, I never had any, reaction like, oh my God, that looks like it hurts. I always just felt fearless, didn't react like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, that was great. But I was starting to watch wrestling and going, oh, that looks like it hurts. Oh, that looks like it hurts. And the minute that you're not fearless anymore, to me, I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
What I built up throughout my career was too important to me.
Right. Yeah, it seemed like it was like a slow buildup. Like you realized this was coming, and then you kind of, so it's almost little by little you started letting go, so that when you finally said, all right, it's over, you were already kind of emotionally prepared for that.
Yes. And a lot of people don't know that literally my very first retirement talk to the time I retired might have been 2 years.
Yeah.
It took a long time. It took a really long time.
Yeah, some athletes can do it, and some athletes it just takes them like they can either, it's a complete downhill. When I retired from track, it took me maybe 6 years to actually watch a race and be in that vicinity without feeling that kind of tie and that emotion, like I want to be there. So, everybody's a little bit different, but thankfully I had something else to fall back on, but definitely I feel that. Now, in the Me Too movement, women are doing a lot of things today, as far as, a lot of stuff that the men are doing. So ladder matches, elimination matches, all that stuff. Compared to maybe like 10 years ago, where do you think, or where do you hope women's wrestling is going to kind of go to?
Well, I would say 10 years ago, TNA was doing it. So I had my first steel cage match even years before that with Jackie.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had street fights as well. But I will say 11 years ago now, because it's 2018, 2007 was when the Knockouts brought the women's division, birthed,
Mm-hmm.
the women's division, the Knockouts division. And I believe that year, I mean, we had a lot of those matches.
Yeah.
So I would say these matches for us have been going on for 10 years for sure. It's new to the WWE world,
Yeah.
yes, and that's basically the massive crowd, general audience that watches. So it is new to them. I think it's great. I think if the girls want to do it, I prefer those type of matches, to be honest. Only because of psychology and it gives me ways to be creative.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's great that they're starting. I think that they could do a tiny bit more and start gradually doing stuff. But I think they just did Hell in the Cell.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
they did.
I'm glad you said WWE because I didn't want to say it. Like we can both admit that WWE is definitely slow on the curve as far as women's stuff because you see mixed matches in Lucha Underground, stuff like that. So you're seeing a lot of other stuff happen, and then I think WWE is letting other organizations test the water, and then they're slowly bringing it in. So. I
don't think it was even about them testing the waters, though. I think for them, WWE always thinks in a very business mindset.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, they're thinking, okay, this women's revolution is becoming hot. Ronda Rousey, this Me Too movement. So of course they're gonna
jump on
that bandwagon because, to be honest, I'm gonna say it. I don't care because I've said it on Twitter. Stephanie could have been fighting for us a long time ago. She was there every single time I worked there.
Mm-hmm.
And she had zero interest in fighting for the women back then. So for me, as they should, they're a corporation.
Mm-hmm.
They think in a very business way. So for them, everything is business motivated. So them having this women's revolution, and also it's from the fans as well. The fans did demand it through social media, and Vince heard it and made it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think finally the girls are getting treated the way they want to get treated. But I would honestly, I'm sure, I don't know, people might disagree with me, but I feel as if they put their bodies through the same thing the guys go through.
Mm-hmm.
So depending on because they've main evented Royal Rumble now, right?
Mm-hmm.
These girls should be getting paid equally.
Well, so now let's go into that. Do you know what the pay scale is like as far as?
I don't know because everyone's an independent contractor, so everyone always gets paid differently.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone has a different contract, so we don't really discuss those things amongst ourselves. It's kind of, I guess, money is kind of a taboo subject to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if there's two girls that are going to main event a pay-per-view, that they should be getting paid the same amount that, say, if it was two guys main eventing the pay-per-view.
Right.
I mean, they're obviously important enough to main event, and they're good enough to main event.
Right.
So they should be getting paid accordingly.
So the likelihood of, for instance, AJ Styles and a Charlotte Flair, them getting the equal pay scale is probably not the case. I know you can't say, but
no way. I'm gonna guess no way.
So do you think?
And I'm not gonna say who or what or when or whatever, but I mean, there are times in my career that I was like, say, at the top of the game and being considered the top girl, and I heard of other guys coming in and that were considered, I'd say, mid-card guys or whatever it is, and they were getting paid triple what I was getting paid.
Okay.
And it really upset me, but it's almost like you become engulfed in this world where it's just accepted, and you have to accept it, because if you fight back, you don't want to get punished.
Mm-hmm.
It's just this crazy, difficult situation.
So do you think maybe women should get together and discuss money, or do you think it's more of an individual thing? Or
I think it's really hard in our business because it's such a very specific business.
Mm-hmm.
Like Vince owns a monopoly essentially,
mm-hmm.
In wrestling. So people are afraid to speak up. unfortunately. And I hope that changes, because it's like you speak up depending on who you are, um, and you get punished.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like the people who have good positioning and who have influence should be the ones changing things for the people who deserve it. Unfortunately, it doesn't really happen that way.
Yeah, it's almost like
Yeah.
a good old boys club or girls club, depending on who you're talking
Yeah.
to. Okay,
Yeah.
well let's move on from that. I mean, I feel
Okay.
like whoever listens to this, if you're a female wrestler, then you know
Yeah.
you've maybe that kind of sparked the idea. You can do with it what you will. But
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hope that it changes in the future.
I know it's just kind of one of those things where you'll see what happens. Now, you're doing the producing thing, but when you were in LA and we were trying to book you, you said you were working on some projects. Are there any projects
Yes.
that you can tell us about?
I can't. I
Oh,
signed an NDA.
I was thinking about that as my drive here, and I'm like, I'm just gonna ask her. I'm figuring that
Yeah.
she can't, but you never know.
Yeah. It's a passion project for me, so
Uh-huh.
that's all I can really say. And I hope that everybody will be hearing about it, I guess, because then you'll know then it's happening.
So,
Right?
is it movies or TV
I
or
can't
radio?
really say.
Does it have to do
But
with
at
writing?
least, hey, I'm exploring a lot of different things.
Mhm. And
Yeah.
now you have been wrestling. Also, let me just point out for my folks, guys, I rep Toronto and Canada all the time. So I'm obviously love Gail because she's a fellow Canadian and from the Six as well. So
Yes.
where do you see yourself in the next couple of years? Like obviously you're doing the producing thing. Is there anything that you kind of wanted to do that you haven't been able to do because you've been so focused on wrestling?
Right. I mean, I'll always want wrestling as part of my life, because and also it's also a safe zone, I guess you could say, because it's what I feel most knowledgeable in and confident in. But I've learned a lot of skills through wrestling. I mean, that could apply to other jobs or real life, and the storytelling, the television, the producing, or whatever it is. So I'm always open to a lot of opportunities, whatever it may be. I've always been kind of a very spontaneous person. Even with wrestling, I was going to University of Toronto, and then I just transferred to Ryerson, and I just became hooked on wrestling again, and I decided to just take my tuition money and become a wrestler. So I mean, I decided that within a month and made it happen, right? And so you just never know with me. Once I know what my goal is, I go after it. I mean, as my husband says, I'm like a bulldog. Sometimes I just hang on and I won't let go. And so once I know my clear goal, I'm very focused and determined.
And now, obviously, we mentioned before, your husband is a world-renowned chef. Is there any possibility of doing like a reality show or any of that, or is that, am I?
I mean, a reality show about our lives, probably not.
Okay.
A lot of people have asked us about that. People are like, why don't you and Robert do something together? And a lot of people, I think, want to do the reality part of it. But for me, number one, I'm a little private, so I think I would feel weird at first, for sure. And then secondly, I feel like it's a curse for couples, and my marriage is more important to me, right? So for me, marriage comes first. The reality show doesn't sound really that appealing. Now, if we had a show that we felt passionate about together, that was something different, that maybe combined our interests, that we found was a great concept, we would do it probably. But we just don't know what that is.
Okay. Now, is there any meal that you always like? Obviously, you wouldn't have it every day because we all have to restrain ourselves a little bit. But is there any meal that you love for him to cook you?
Everything he cooks is good. I mean it. And what I love most, he'll never cook. First off, it took him 8 months to cook for the first time for me.
Oh wow!
So
okay.
we travel so much that we're always in hotels, and so we never had a kitchen. And it's funny that, and then we lived at my place, and we were always on the road. And now we're always on the road too. But our kitchen, we moved into this house maybe 6 months ago, and the kitchen's still not done. So we've been kind of stuck, and we're really excited to start cooking. But he's very good at making, just different types of healthy sauces for vegetables, and just changing it up, because I would always just put spices and maybe dip it in some hot sauce. And I was very clean, simple, and healthy. And he makes it fun and tasty.
Yeah, it's all the chefs bring the little extra stuff that we obviously have no idea about it. Now, last couple questions. Say if you were in your 20s of today, are there any wrestlers that you would want to have any dream matches with?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I mean, oh gosh. I mean, I would have liked to have a proper feud with some of the girls I work with now. You know, like Ellie's the champion right now, Rosemary, Taya. There's so many great girls. But of course, Charlotte is an amazing athlete. I just love her work now. Asuka's there, and like there's so many girls that are really talented right now. It's just there's such a huge generation now that want to be wrestlers and workers and want to wrestle, and now Ember Moon I heard debuted last night.
Awesome.
She's a great athlete too.
And you mentioned Alicia Fox too in the past as well.
Yeah, I mean we had just great chemistry because we're best friends, and because a part of it is trusting your opponent, and we just always trusted each other because we're the best of friends. Right. I don't know. I mean, there's so many girls. As I love Charlotte, Sasha, Asuka. Those are probably. I would say those are my top three. Okay. If you're going to look at WWE, which most people are looking.
Oh no, I just mean across the board. Like we had Taya on the show, I think 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And she's amazing.
I love her.
Yeah. So I'm just talking about across the board. It doesn't have to be WWE.
Oh yeah, I definitely wish I could have worked with her before I retired. I was like, oh man, and we just kind of like caught the end of each other, or my end and her beginning.
Well, hopefully we can almost it'd be great if they do like a creation of a women's wrestling video game, but it's not catered to just one organization. Like you can kind of,
that would be awesome.
Yeah, so it's between me and you. So if anybody picks that idea, then we can.
Yeah,
it's now.
You stole it.
I know, it's now in the universe. Now, you did say you and Foxy are good friends. There was a situation that happened over WrestleMania. Were you able to talk to her about that, or did you hear anything, or did she text you, or is everything okay with her?
I just called her and left her a message and said the same thing. I'm like, is everything okay? And I don't know what the situation is, because a lot of fans believe everything they read on the dirt sheets and everything. Right. And I don't read that because I don't believe most. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it has some truth to it, obviously, but I don't know. I just choose not to participate in that. And I don't like when fans believe everything, because there's normally a few facts that are wrong, if not everything. And so just the weekend just ended, so I don't know what really happened because I haven't spoken to her. Okay. But I'm hoping at least that she's okay. I'm sure she is, but I actually didn't watch the whole video.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. It was a few seconds. It was maybe less than 30 seconds, but she was pointing her finger at Travis. We don't know exactly what happened. Yeah. Somebody came over to her and said, somebody's filming, and she essentially, turned to the person and then walked off. So we don't know, like that is such a short snippet that we don't know what transpired before, what happened after. So, you could create 100 stories. So, but I just wanted to make sure, and,
the women of wrestling in general, whether you're in WWE, TNA, Impact, whatever, we're all very strong, feisty women for the most part. So I don't know what happened, like I said, but I'm sure it'll work itself out.
For sure. So hopefully she's all good. Final stuff. This is like a rapid fire question. So I'm going to say the question. You say whatever comes to your mind. Okay. So it's just a few of them. So always early or always late?
Always early.
Last person you text?
Christy Hemme.
Ooh. And when was the last time you lied?
Oh boy. Okay. Gosh, that's a good one. Gotta think about that one. Hold on. Last time I lied, I told the guy at the GNC store yesterday. I said I made up some excuse because he wanted me to buy some product, and I made up some excuse. I guess I could have just told him I didn't want it, but
I know sometimes you have to be nice.
I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, that's a nice lie. That's a Canadian lie. Yeah. If you were to change one thing,
exactly.
If you were to change one thing in the world, what would it be?
Ooh. Oh boy. That's a hard one. One thing in the world. Well, right now, the thing that comes off on the top of my head is what we were just talking about, and that's the women's equality thing. I feel like I'm kind of a little bit of a feminist at heart, and so I get very fiery and passionate when I think about things like that.
Yeah, well, we're all like, well, not we're all, but you guys are all taking the bumps, so the bumps are no different either way. What is the thing that you really love about yourself?
I love that I'm strong, and I think that sometimes I feel like, am I too strong and aggressive? But I wouldn't change that about myself, because I feel like that's the one thing that people will compliment me about, that they do like that I'm strong.
A celeb you want to meet?
Ooh, Anderson Cooper.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know.
I can see you guys hanging out. That's
yeah, my husband knows about. I always say that's my hall pass, but he says I have no hall pass. I'm not allowed a hall pass.
Well,
and I said, but he's gay, so it's okay. But I said he'd probably prefer you as the hall pass.
Yeah, I mean, I think cuddling would be okay.
It's fine. I know. I love Anderson because I've heard that he's just such a nice guy. I love what he does. I'm constant, fan of CNN and everything. I like to know what's going on in the world, and he just seems so genuine, and he's very well spoken and just really pleasant. I like him.
Yeah. And last question. Last show you binged watched?
Oh, well, I mean, not binge watched. Okay. Well, my favorite show is Homeland, and I would binge watch it if I could, but they only release one episode every weekend.
Yeah.
So I compare all shows to Homeland.
Oh boy, okay.
And nothing will even touch it for some reason. But the last show I actually binge watched from, all at once was Narcos, I believe.
Oh yeah.
Narcos.
Season 1 or season 2?
Two.
Season 2. Also another one, I mean, if you have time, the cover on it on Netflix doesn't look really good. Wild Wild Country. I think I'm saying it right.
Wild Country.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's about a cult in Oregon. But when you look at the picture and you see the title, I think I'm saying it right. If you see it on Netflix, it's probably one of your choices. It's something that you wouldn't really want to watch. And then I had a couple of friends or coworkers that were talking about it, and then I watched it, and I watched all 6 episodes back to back. It's actually really interesting. So you might want to put that in the queue for sometime in the summer when you get time to watch that stuff.
Yeah,
now,
definitely.
Where can people find you?
I'm normally on Twitter and Instagram. I think that's my only 2 social media. Yep. And it's the same handle, Gail Kim, it's me.
Well, Gail, like I said, I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. Like I said, we tried to make it work. It worked. You are here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Had fun.
Oh my gosh. She was absolutely amazing. One of the big shout outs to one of the world's greatest female wrestlers, Gail Kim. I thank you so much. I mean, you guys don't need to hear any more from me. We had watched a ridiculous amount of WrestleMania and wrestling over the last 4 or 5 days. But, definitely shout out to all the new champions and the champions who retained their belts in WWE, in Impact, ROH, etc. And don't forget to follow us on everything, WPW Weekly, Instagram and Twitter. Also AfterBuzz Wrestling. On YouTube, we are reading the comments. My folks on live chat, I thank you guys so much. One of the questions was asked is if we're going to be moving to the 4 o'clock slot. Yes, we are. So essentially, I want to give people, it's a wrestling block. So you have X-Pac 12360 at 3 p.m. Then you have Women Pro Wrestling Weekly at 4. You get to watch NXT, and then you can watch the after show. So I figured, help everybody out. Some more wrestling. So other than that, you can find me on everything at TK Trinidad. You can also catch me on TMZ, writing for, writing for way too much stuff. Follow me on everything, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff, at TK Trinidad. Other than that, I really, really appreciate you guys for tuning in. There are a lot of wrestling podcasts out there, but I appreciate each and every one of you, good and bad. I will catch you guys next week. We do have a guest for you, so stay tuned.
From executive producers Kevin Undergaro, Maria Menounos, Phil Svitek, producer TK Trinidad, and me, Mark Donica, your voice of AfterBuzz TV Wrestling. We ask you to rate and comment on iTunes, subscribe to AfterBuzz Wrestling on YouTube, and find us on all social media. Thank you for watching Women's Pro Wrestling Weekly. See you next week.